How's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech. Now, I recently read a new post from TechSpot and from WCC Tech where they talked about NVIDIA asking retailers to, instead of selling the GPUs to miners, instead sell them to gamers, which of course they're meant for. Also, this is kind of to do with some of you guys on my live stream and in the comments asking me if I think the GPU prices will go down or what's going to happen with the prices. So I would like to say that the prices is going to go down in 2018, but honestly I do not think so with all of the mining craze and all of that. Honestly, I kind of think the prices might even go up or just stay where they are at the moment. But in this video, I want to talk about why prices are as high as they are at the moment, who's at fault. I actually want to compare it to some of the local prices here in South Africa compared to the overseas prices like from the US. And then also I want to predict some of the prices for the future, what I think the prices are going to be at, or again, if they are going to go down, if they're going to go up. And then also how the card manufacturers like NVIDIA and AMD and also the board partners can help prevent the prices from going up too much. But now, just to be clear, this video might be a bit long because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. So if you guys want as much information as possible, stay till the end of the video. There's a lot of stuff again that I want to go over. But anyway, let's get into the video right after this. Do you live in South Africa and want to get yourself some awesome new gaming products? Well, go check out Rebel Tech. They have extremely low prices and they stock all the major brands like ASUS, MSI, Gigabyte, Corsair and many more. So go check out rebeltech.co.za to go get the products you are looking for at a low price. Now, also, first off, I just want to be clear, I am also a crypto miner. I make a bunch of crypto mining videos, so I'm also kind of at fault here for kind of increasing the prices, but most of my videos are aimed for smaller crypto miners who just want to get some extra bit of cash to help cover some smaller expenses. Most of my videos aren't aimed for the big crypto miners that have like 1,000 GPUs mining. It's just for some people who have like 3 or so what GPUs. So again, just to be clear, I'm not completely innocent of this, but I just want to deliver my opinion on all of this, being a gamer and then also a crypto miner. Okay, now the main question is, of course, why are GPU prices as high as they are at the moment? Now, the post I read was from TechSpot where they actually showed up a few different prices for all of the GPUs, where they were at MSRP when they were released, and then also where are they at now. Now, I did add some percentages with this chart just to give you guys an indication of how much it did actually increase. Now, these prices are also more for the US instead of the UK or Europe or South Africa. So if you just take a quick look, we can see that some of the bigger cards, like for instance, especially the AMD cards, the RX 570 and the RX 580, they've increased over 100%. The RX 570, 217%. The RX 580 8GB, 187%. That's a crazy jump for a card. And even when we take a look at the GTX 1060, that's up 112%. At 1070 is 134%, and the GTX 1080 is up 88%. Even the GTX 1080 Ti, which normally had an MSRP of $700, is up 71% to $1,200. That's unbelievably just crazy how much that actually increased. And honestly, before I actually checked out these prices and how much they increased, I didn't think that it was that bad, but after seeing this, that's a crazy amount that it actually went up, and it really shouldn't be this expensive just for a graphics card. Now, the lower end graphics cards aren't really affected that much. When we take a look at the GTX 1050 Ti, that's 35% up. That's not too bad. The RX 560 is 40% up. That's also a bit too high, but it's not too bad. So for entry-level gamers, it's not too bad for getting a RX 560 or a GTX 1050 Ti, or even lower than that. But now, getting back to the main question again, why are these prices so high at the moment? And of course, the main reason because of that is the miners, the crypto miners that buys a minimum of about 6 to 100 GPUs just to be able to mine cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Zcash, sometimes Bitcoin. So it's mostly because of them being able to buy such a huge bulk of GPUs. Normally, for gamers, they would buy 1 to 2 GPUs if they wanted to Sly or Crossfire. They would buy 2 max GPUs at a single time. But because of the miners, again, buying 6 to whatever amount they want for their mining farm, that is kind of reducing the supply for GPUs and increasing the price for that as well. Now, another factor that we have to look into is not really because of the miners per se, but it is because there's a shortage of memory. Now, the memory manufacturers like SK Hynix, Micron, and Samsung, they produce the memory chips for these GPUs, and currently they're at a very low shortage with the amount of, for instance, GDDR5 they can produce. Now, Steve from Gamer Nexus did actually make a video on what board manufacturers think about the increasing prices of GPUs and because of the mining and all of that. And in this video, he also said that the prices of this memory has increased quite a lot. They would normally pay about $5 for some of the memory components, but now it actually bumped up all the way to between $20 to $30, and that isn't retail prices, that's the manufacturing process. So you're gonna put on a lot of percentages with that because it goes through a lot of different companies as well, the board manufacturers, the retailers, and all of that. So the prices, just because of that $30 increase, can potentially increase the prices by even $60. So that is also a factor that we have to look into. Now, of course, this shortage is kind of to do with the Bitcoin miners buying up all of the GPUs. So again, the crypto miners kind of at fault here, but this is also something that is kind of potentially increasing the prices for everything. Now, of course, we would all also like to blame NVIDIA and AMD for increasing the prices so much, but honestly, it's not really their fault. If we would rather take a look at the retailers, they're mainly at fault here for the increase in prices. If we just take, for example, Newegg, where they have third-party sellers which sells bundles of GPUs for up to 6 GPUs to their clients. So that is also a factor that we have to look into, that the retailers is just increasing their prices and increasing the amount of GPUs that they're also selling. If we go back to the usual MSRP prices again, you can see that the prices have increased so much, and that is not the board manufacturers or NVIDIA's fault. That is mostly to do with the retailers just asking more money because there's a demand and a low in stock, so they can ask whatever they want, and the miners or the gamers will pay that amount to just get some cards. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that the Newegg or some of the other retailers are evil and they should go to hell or anything like that. I know business is business, and I probably know that more than most people. Most people just kind of don't understand that. But yes, business is business. If you can make more, then you would make more. So that's just money is money again. So that is also something that we have to take a look at. But also something that I want to take a look at is comparing the prices here in South Africa, where I'm at, compared to some of the prices like from Newegg or just from overseas, US or the UK or whatever. Now, the prices here in South Africa have always been a lot higher, even at MSRP, a lot higher than the US or Europe or whatever. So how does the prices compare here against there now? To compare all of this prices increase, I first have to find out the prices here in South Africa, and to find that out, I went to some of the older articles that was posted by MWeb and then also My Broadband, some of the big forum and website partners for hardware and just gaming related news here in South Africa. And what I found was that actually the prices here in South Africa didn't really increase that much when comparing to what they actually were at launch. Now, when we take a look at some of these prices, I did take the amount usually for the Founders Edition cards. So they were a bit more expensive at launch because it's a new card. Everybody wants it. There's a bit of a hype because of that. And then later on, the board partners would bring out their cards and the prices would go down a bit. But now I'm taking a look at the price at launch and how much the people would have actually paid for that compared to now. Now, when we take a look at some of the AMD cards first, for instance, the RX 570 4GB, we could see that it started out at 3,500 Rand, and then it went up to 4,500 Rand, which is at the moment. That's about a 28% increase, which isn't compared to the US prices of almost 217%. So that's already 10x lower. When we take a look at the RX 580 8GB, we would see that at launch it was 4,500 Rand and it went up to 5,500 Rand, which is 22%. So as we can see, it's not nearly as close as 187% of an increase. So that's firstly something that kind of astonished me, that the prices here in South Africa didn't really go up that much compared to the US. Now also, again, usually our prices here in South Africa are a lot higher than what the prices overseas are when we just convert some of the launch prices compared to some of the launch prices, or just the prices now. For some of the cards, we can already see that the prices are relatively high anyway. But now when we take a look at the GTX 1066 gig, for example, at launch for the Founders Edition, it costs about 6,500 Rand, and at the moment it's about 6 grand. So it actually went down 7%, which is also a bit weird. So again, like I said in the beginning, that the prices for the boards from the board manufacturers would have reduced the prices a bit, and the launch usually does increase the price a bit too much for Founders Edition cards. So just keep that in mind as well again. But now if we could take a look at the GTX 1070, for example, the launch prices was about 9 grand. Prices now at the moment is about 9 grand. So nothing really changed there. A few percentage perhaps, depending on what card you go for, but it didn't really change that much. When we take a look at the GTX 1080, for example, at launch, that card was super expensive at about 14,000 Rand. Now currently it's trading at about 11,000 Rand. So that's down 21%. Which is also a bit weird. So again, it was kind of the hype that with a new card that increased the prices, and also a Founders Edition. So it did go down probably about to 10 grand or so afterwards, but I didn't really get that prices. We take a look at the GTX 1080 Ti, for example, at the launch, that was about 13 grand. At the moment, that's about 14,500 Rand. So prices did go up a bit there at about 11%. But honestly, it's again not nearly as close to the US prices, where it was about 71%. So that's a crazy amount. Now again, if we do compare the $1,200 compared to our 14,500 Rand, that is kind of a bit close. So for us here in South Africa, we pay a huge amount for our graphics cards, even before or after the prices did change so much. So I just wanted to compare our South African prices to some of the US prices, and again, that was kind of something interesting to see, that the US prices could increase so much, whereas our prices here in South Africa didn't really increase that much, if any. So that was just something that I wanted to show you guys, that the retailers do play a massive part in the increasing prices. It is all because of the huge amount of crypto miners at the moment, where there's a lack of stock and all of that. So the retailers can ask whatever they want, so they can make a bunch of money. And again, it's business is business. It's just something that is there. But now getting back to that article where NVIDIA asked the retailers to stop selling to miners and focus more on gamers, because gamers is still mainly the focus or the main profit for NVIDIA. They make about 50% just of their GeForce gaming cards because of gamers, compared to some of their higher end Tesla and just all of the other cards they make. So gamers are still bringing in a lot of money for NVIDIA, and they don't want to lose that and that potential revenue they got. Now just quickly going over that article, NVIDIA said that for NVIDIA, gamers come first. For all activities retail to our GeForce product line are targeted at our main audience to ensure that GeForce gamers continue to have a good GeForce graphics card availability in the certain situation. We recommend that our trading partners make the appropriate arrangements to meet gamers' needs as usual. So as we can see, that NVIDIA is trying to support gamers instead of the miners, because gamers are more loyal towards brand and manufacturer than really the crypto miners. They just want the best card for the price, and they don't care from who it is. They don't have brand loyalty or anything like that. They just want to get their money and they don't care. Whereas gamers, they do focus more on loyalty. For instance, I know there's a bunch of AMD loyalists out there. They don't care if some of the Nvidia cards are better or cheaper. They want to go with AMD because they are loyal to AMD. So that's just an example where, again, miners, they don't care. And also, just to go back to the video from Steve from Gamers Nexus, where he also interviewed or asked a bunch of the board partners what they thought about this entire crypto mining thing, or what's their opinion on this. Most of them were kind of against it because, again, about loyalty, where the gamers would support their brand, which they like. Even if they are a bit more expensive, they rather stick to a brand that they love and they like. So this kind of shows that the board manufacturers would rather support a loyalty and have a consistent selling point instead of just a couple of miners buying a huge amount, selling a bunch of graphics cards, and then potentially later on selling nothing again because they lost their loyalty to the gamers, which again would buy the cards because they do like the brand, whereas miners, they don't really care. But now, what's my predictions for some of the prices for the rest of 2018? What I think is the prices again going to go down, up, what's going to happen, and what potentially is going to happen with the new GTX 2000 series that's going to come out. Now, again, from the beginning, I said that I don't think that the prices for graphics cards would go down. If there's not a cryptocurrency crash or anything like that, the prices will potentially go up or stay where they are at the moment, depending on just a bunch of other factors. And then as for the GTX 2000 series launch, that also depends mostly again on the retailers, what they are going to ask for, how much money they want to make out of this, because they're still going to get the basic price, the MSRP price from Nvidia, where they say that the prices should be relatively around this price. But that again also depends on the retailers. So yeah, that's going to be a bit hard. We'll have to see how much the cards are actually going to sell for and how much they are going to allow to be sold to a single person. For instance, with Rebeltech here in South Africa, they have, with a bunch of their cards, they have a limit of 2 cards per household. So that's kind of a way they want to protect the gamers instead of just selling all of their cards to all of the miners, because potentially they could do that, but they are mainly focusing on the gamers because that's also the people that have always been loyal to them, that have always supported them. So that's kind of one thing that some of the retailers are looking at, potentially limiting the supply to a single person. Now, there are some ways around that, but again, that's not really something they can predict. They're kind of just trying to prevent that in the best way possible that they are able to. But that is kind of a way that some of the retailers trying to support the gamers instead of just making a bunch load of cash. So that's some of the people that I just think kind of still wants to support the gamers. But now, something you guys are probably wondering about, and I did the same in the beginning, why can't Nvidia just produce more cards, or why can't the board manufacturers just make 3 times more cards than what is currently supplied at the moment, which potentially they can. Nvidia isn't really producing the max amount of GPUs that they can actually. The reason for this, and again thanks to Steve from Gamers Nexus, which explained a lot of this to me as well, the reason is that the board manufacturers are kind of a bit scared because there could potentially, we never know when a crash could happen. So if there's a crash, then all of the GPUs currently would flood the second-hand market, and that would destroy the prices of new retail GPUs, and potentially the board manufacturers and Nvidia would sit with thousands of just expensive GPUs that they won't be able to sell. So they're playing it a bit more safe rather than just producing thousands of more GPUs, which again, potentially the markets could crash and they're gonna sit with a huge loss that could potentially put them in a really bad spot where either they could go into bankruptcy or just not be able to produce enough cards anymore. But now, because the card manufacturers are mostly towards us loyal to the gamers, how could they potentially prevent all of these GPUs to be sold to the miners? Now, most of this is currently just my opinion of how they could do this. I'm not saying that they are going to do this or they should do this or whatever. This is just an opinion that I have, because in my heart, I'm still more of a gamer than a miner. I do love the mining. It's so interesting and all of that, but I'm still mainly focused towards gamers. I've played games for my entire life, so yeah, I kind of want to support the gamers a bit more than the mining. So the first potential way that I think kind of would be the base way for the card manufacturers to go for, and this is something that Nvidia has done in a different way, is that they ban the use of GeForce cards in crypto mining farms and just the use for cryptocurrency mining. Now, of course, for small miners, Nvidia won't be able to actually ban the use of GeForce cards, but for the larger scale, huge mining farms where they have thousands to probably a million GPUs, I don't know how many, but for those instances, they could potentially ban the use of GeForce cards for that. Just like they actually did ban the use of GeForce cards in data centers, where they mostly produce, again, the Tesla and Quadro cards, well, mostly the Tesla cards for data center use. A lot of the data centers did use the GeForce cards because they were less expensive and they could get more of them on hand. So Nvidia did actually ban the use of GeForce cards in those instances. Why can't Nvidia just do the same with cryptocurrency mining? If they can do that, then if they find some of these huge farms using GeForce cards for mining, they could potentially sue them for a huge amount, and that could kind of reduce the sales of GeForce gaming cards towards cryptocurrency mining. Now, of course, for small miners, it's not really going to be that big of a deal because Nvidia won't focus that hugely on smaller miners, which have, let's say, 20 GPUs, something like that. But for the huge crypto mining farms, for them, it could be a huge way of preventing them from buying 1,000 GPUs at a time, which is probably the biggest reason why there's a huge supply, or why the prices are that high at the moment, because of those huge crypto mining farms. Then the second way I think Nvidia and AMD can potentially reduce the sale of gaming graphics cards towards the cryptocurrency miners is by producing more mining cards instead of gaming cards per se. I know they do have some of the dedicated mining cards which doesn't have display output and some of those cards, but honestly, in my life, I've never seen one in person. I've seen them online, but even working at a retail store, I've never actually seen one, which kind of means that there aren't really that many of them going around. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are still mainly going for the normal GeForce cards, because you can get them in normal retail stores and online stores and all of that, so they're a lot easier to get. But if Nvidia could potentially bring out a new department, or AMD could bring out a new department that just produces crypto mining cards, and not only the GTX 1060 variants or whatever, if they can produce GTX 1080 variants or 1080 Ti variants, and potentially reduce the prices of those by a bunch, and or they can also just mainly outsource those cards to some of the bigger crypto mining farms. That's kind of a way they could also reduce the sales of a bunch of these GeForce gaming cards. Now, of course, there's a huge risk involved. With actually starting up a new department just to produce a game or the cryptocurrency graphics cards, because if the cryptocurrency market crashes, then that entire department goes to waste, and they could potentially lose a massive amount of their profits or their revenue. So it could help out the gamers a lot, because there would be a bunch more gaming graphics cards, but in the meantime, it could also potentially put in a loss for Nvidia and AMD if the cryptocurrency market crashes, which is kind of something that a big business doesn't really want. Money is still, of course, the main focus for a big business, and potentially losing a lot of money isn't really that they want to go for. But honestly, that is kind of one of the better options that I think that the board manufacturer and the card manufacturers can go for.